Indeed, the Sudanese crisis is described by the word as the worst in the whole world. Let me here welcome Mr. Ramy Zohdy, African affairs expert, who's joining us live from Cairo, and he will be shedding light on Sudan's escalating crisis, the humanitarian catastrophe, and regional diplomatic efforts. So good evening to you, and let me start by asking, what are the main factors that have driven Sudan's conflict to escalate so dramatically in 2025?
Actually, here the conflict got worse by the end of 2025. Around 1,000 days from the war has started, but it actually ignited out of nowhere gradually. It is because of lots of reasons that escalated the war and for us to reach where we are right now. And one of these reasons is just a broad political horizon. There were no negotiations between the or both sides, and there weren't any efforts to reach real negotiations. And then also another reason is the having the war just in a small area like El Khartoum, for example, but it moved on to other states like Darfur, Kordofan, and so on. And then also they were using this kind of ethnic dialogue to support the factions or to support the RSF. And then also there were there was support for the factions here. And then the last reason also is because of an economic collapse and not having the basic necessities. And of course this increased the war and made things more complicated.
Indeed, and we've also seen the Darfur, what happened in Darfur, and what happened also in Al-Fashir, which were definitely very grave incidents that took place. How effective have international organizations been in responding to the famine and displacement in Sudan after crises?
Actually, international response and the supporting institutions were actually not enough for the humanitarian crisis that the people are facing. And now we are facing in Sudan one of the worst humanitarian situations. And so, as I just told you, the humanitarian aid was nowhere near enough, actually. And there were some things that affected the delivery of humanitarian aid, of course, which is not being able to access the aid because of the war and the strikes and so on. And so this is why aid was distributed unevenly. And then also something else that of course affected this is the aid workers couldn't actually reach the areas where they needed to go, and the food as well. The aid wasn't just distributed unconditionally. And then the third reason here is a funding shortfall from lots of countries. There weren't enough funding that can actually save the people that were facing such a crisis. But of course, some institutions and organizations here that follow the UN, of course, had such an effective role in helping the Sudanese.
Right, if I may turn here to the Egyptian role, which has had a tremendous effect on the situation in Sudan, or the developments in Sudan. How has Egypt's clear commitment to Sudan's sovereignty and territorial integrity shaped its mediation role, and how influential has this stance been in the region?
Been very clear. And they were clear from the very first day. They want to protect Sudan and keep it as a whole. Egypt has refused any factions or any factions to have arms except for the government. They didn't want to divide the country, and of course here Egypt was a key player and a very important mediator here because they didn't intervene in the country's willingness or intervened in their internal affairs. They actually just supported them and refused any division or anything that would harm the country's sovereignty. And just respecting the government and not having any other factions have um, arms, and then also starting some kind of a committee in Sudan that can actually help both sides here to reach a resolution and to reach a ceasefire. And then Egypt has also refused any international interventions that supported war or a worse situation than the one we are in.
Mr. Zohdy, if I may ask you here, Sudan's crisis, from your point of view, how it impacts broader regional stability, particularly in the Horn of Africa and North Africa?
Sudan is an important country here in the region and internationally, and so it is just not Sudan's issue. It is the reason of regional instability here. There is a regional spillover, and so a lot of countries are affected by this now, like the countries in of Africa. And so and here actually things have been escalating. We've seen just illegal arms trafficking and even creating more factions, and so this causes the neighboring countries to actually be more fragile. And they have been already suffering because of Sudan's conflict. Lots of countries have actually been affected, and then also we've seen mass displacement to Egypt and Libya, and terrorism is just always there in Sudan. And then also they've been pushing the Red Sea security, which is very important here when it comes to maritime trade. And so here we can say that war isn't just about Sudan now. It is actually affecting the countries in the region and internationally.
Right, if I may ask you here, Mr. Zohdy, if I may ask you here, do you think that the Sudanese crisis or the instability inside Sudan could really spill over to other or neighboring countries in the Horn of Africa, in the north of Africa, and how would that issue, particularly the Sudanese instability, reflect on other important files also in the African continent?
Yeah, Sudan's instability and continuing the war for so long could actually affect the stability of the neighboring countries and the neighboring countries of those countries, just reaching the Horn of Africa. Of course, the mass displacement and is very important here and is affecting the other countries. And Sudan was a link here between lots of countries, and then also several wars can actually move on from Sudan to other neighbor countries as well. And these factions, these armed factions, not just the RSF, but of course especially the RSF, they could move on to other neighboring countries if the Sudanese army pushes them to. And so, yeah, such factions can actually move to neighboring countries and could cause lots of problems in the region.
Right, we thank you so much, Mr. Ramy Zohdy, African affairs expert from Cairo, for your insights here and for your analysis that helped us better understand Sudan's crisis, the humanitarian challenges, and the critical role of regional diplomacy. We appreciate your time and expertise here on Qnews 2025 recap. And I guess that wraps up our Qnews 2025 recap on the Middle East and Sudan. We've explained conflicts, humanitarian crises, and shifting regional dynamics. And we hope 2026 would bring better developments for the Middle East and African continent at large. We thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned for more updates and continued coverages with experts, analysis and updates on the region navigates the challenges and opportunities ahead. Many thanks for watching.